Juneteenth. It's a holiday often called the Black 4th of July. It's celebrated with cookouts, festivals, historical reenactments, and it's one of the most important days in African American history. Juneteenth celebrates the end of slavery in the United States. You see, the U.S. Declaration of Independence stated that all men were created equal, but this didn't apply to black slaves. The move to end slavery didn't happen until Abraham Lincoln issued a law in 1863, almost 100 years later. But the news took more than 2 years to reach all parts of the country. The state of Texas was the last to find out. On June 19, 1865, 250,000 slaves were freed in Texas, marking independence for all Americans.
We've all been hurt at some point, even abandoned. Many of us have done the hurting ourselves. We get to the point where we don't trust anyone, nor do we feel worthy of being loved by anyone. Then there's that one person who just doesn't give up on loving you. Their love is unconditional. Their love stays long enough for you to heal. And then they promise to never leave. That's love you can count on. God's love.
Hey everybody, how you doing everybody all over the world? We're happy once again to bring you a brand new broadcast on the PIC TV Network World News. We're so excited for all of our friends watching. Push that like button, push that share button. Let them know that the PIC TV Network World News is on. Want to say hello to our friends in Brazil, France, Argentina, Nicaragua, United States, Colombia, Mexico, Guatemala, United Kingdom, Germany, Panama, Ireland, Peru, Chile, all over the world is watching with us today. We're so happy to bring you the fourth segment of our special presentation that's still hot as fish grease. What is that? That's Reconnecting the Generation. And I'm so happy today to have
We're so happy today to have all of our folks everywhere, but on our panel today, we have Patricia Friedenberg from New York.
Hello.
And Jean Turner. And I'm Michelle. I'm here in Atlanta. How you ladies doing today? Dr. Evans will be right back. So we're going to be talking about connecting generations and why it's so important. Not only is it important, but how we are doing it today and how we did it when we came up and some of the parallels and what we can do to bridge the gap. Jean, go ahead and introduce yourself. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I am Nurse Coach Jean Turner here in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a registered nurse, holistic health nurse and nurse coach. I am the founder and chief wellness officer of Spirit of a Warrior Life Enterprises, LLC, which is a service-oriented health education and awareness company. And I'm also the host of a radio show and podcast, Health Chat with Coach Jean. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Glad to see you here. And Patricia up in New York, please introduce yourself and tell everybody about you.
How are you, Michelle? And I am the CEO of Missugram, a global solution to cope with loss, moving at the speed of life. And I'm here in New York to bring you all the New York news. And also on behalf of the Latino community, I also am here to share for those people who are all in the Spanish community. And today I love this topic and I'm ready to kick it off.
Awesome. And for those folks that don't know me, I'm Michelle, the Computer Lady. I'm an author and children's book publisher of the Mommy Readers Collection series of books. I'm based in Atlanta. I also teach computer IT and for me, this is a very special topic, and this is a very special network, the PIC network. PIC TV network was built to ensure that we leave a living legacy for our kids, especially with us being Black and people of color. We need to make sure that we have a network that represents us in the way that we are, in a positive light, because we're more than the things that you see on broadcast news. You're more than what we see on TV. You're more than what we see as far as the segments on BET. We're a bigger, broader spectrum of that, and that's why we're here this evening. So let me ask a couple of questions to our panel. Dr. Evans is back. Dr. Evans, I just introduced everybody. You introduce you.
No, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that these generals, you guys, they know what to do. When we look at Michelle, who is our public relations person down in Atlanta, and we got another Atlanta. Atlanta is taking over. I got the president right here in this house, y'all. Right behind me is the president, Joe Biden, and our vice president, Kamala Harris. And they taking over in Atlanta. We got Michelle Cox is here from Atlanta, the computer lady, and we got also Coach Dean. Oh man, Turner from Atlanta, but me in New York gonna come and get them. I'm excited because these women are part of the PIC TV network team. Michelle is a genius with us, and Jean works with us and bringing people on, and then we have the New York, of course, the Big Apples with us. But I'm gonna let Michelle do what she do. She can moderate. I can just sit back and relax and wait for the next commercial to come on, Michelle. So I'm gonna let you do your thing for a minute. They know what's up. Come on, Michelle, talk to us.
All right. Well, let's think about when we talk about connecting and what that means. For a long time, when we talked about connecting, we talked about having family reunions and when families got together. Also, the connecting of how we connect in our communities and why it's important. And tonight's question, or one of tonight's questions, is, have we lost those connections? And if so, how do we get those back? Patricia, why don't you take that question first, and then you hand it over to Jean.
So you know what came to mind? A couple of things came to mind, but we'll have time to go over all of them. And one thing that came to mind was reality TV versus pre-recorded television, like we grew up. And where I see the difference also, which nothing's wrong with reality TV. I mean, that's what we're doing now, right? News is reality in a sense. But where I see that there can be a bridge is where when we used to watch TV, besides it was a different types of shows, like I said, mostly recorded, even though sometimes they had live audiences, that we used to watch it together as a family. As a family used to watch it together and used to share like one TV. Now everybody has their own device and watches it on their own stuff. So that's a bridge, like, okay, now it's reality TV. Like my daughter was running to go watch Chopped, and that's what brought it to mind right before going on air. And I said, wow, that's something different too, but guess what? Now I feel like the bridge could be watching together. And that's what I got out of this one today. But how about you, Jean? What do you say?
I like that, Patricia. I love that what you said, because it's so true. Because unfortunately, we do the same thing in my house. It's just me and my husband. We're empty nesters, and he could be either downstairs or upstairs watching what he loves to watch, the news all the time. I don't, because it stresses me out, so I don't. And I'm downstairs watching something else, mostly YouTube videos when I'm on a treadmill. So I totally concur with that. That was really great. But I'm going to come from a different perspective. Being a nurse for 34 years, coming from the healthcare field, what we don't do now that we did to an extent, a greater extent growing up, when we were coming up, is sharing family history, right? Talked about, your grandmother did this, or your granddaddy had his own business, or whatever the case is, right? But we also were more aware of our family history, and particularly our family health history. So now, as a healthcare professional, I encounter the younger generation. they have not a clue. If you tell them, oh my gosh, your blood sugar's so high, you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, like, so okay, and what I mean, like, when, well, did your family have a history of it? I don't know. So we've got to bridge that gap. We've got to share family history. Older generation, or let me just say, us more seasoned generation, with this younger generation. Unfortunately, we just had a good friend of my husband's colleague in his 40s die suddenly from a ruptured. He had an aneurysm that ruptured, and come to find out, what particularly happened to him was hereditary. No idea. So we've got to bridge the gap. Got to start passing along family history in every dimension, every domain of our family, whether it's family history regarding health, grandma's potato salad, whatever it is. Begin documenting, talking about it, and share that with the generations.
Well, Jean, I think you make a really good point. For my family in particular, that was one of the things, is knowing the health status. And I'm a very attentive, or was a very attentive child. So for me to know what was going on with my family, I'm basically the family record keeper. I knew about dad's hypertension when he had surgery. I knew about my mom's hip break. I knew that my grandmother had bad knees, but I didn't know why she had bad knees. And it wasn't until later that my mother told me that my grandmother had really bad arthritis. So that's going on in my sister. And it was one of those things I wish she had told me, because what happened was, I have arthritis, but I didn't know it was going to be this bad. And I probably would have taken care of my body as far as some of the physical things I've done, because I used to box. I'm a welder by trade. I've done all kind of really physical stuff. And so there's some of the falls that I've taken, and some of the jars that I've taken. I probably would have been a little bit more careful with my knees had I known more. And that's why, as parents, we need to sit down and talk with our children, whether it's health disease, whether it's diabetes, whether it's arthritis, what's going on with us. Now, the other way we should connect is, what are we reading? What are our children reading? Are we reading as a family? Because I got my love of reading from my mom and my sister. And my mother, to keep her mind sharp, she always did a crossword puzzle. Now, I'm not a crossword puzzle aficionado, but I do like the little find a word ones, because I love words. So these little things. And to Patricia's point, I remember watching the Carol Burnett show. And because I grew up in Mississippi, on Sunday night, you only had a few things you could watch. The Pearl Bailey show was one of them, the Carol Burnett show, the Lawrence Welk show, and Rowan and Martin's Laughing. And then other than that, it was Hee Haw. And it doesn't matter what channel you turned, and you had to turn the knob like this. That was all that you were going to get, was those shows. And you either watched them, or then if we didn't watch them, we would play board games together. My mother taught us how to play cards, and we had Monopoly. We had the Game of Life. I remember we got to the Game of Life. Everybody's so excited. So, and we played checkers and chess and things of that nature. So I think now the other part of it is, because of our economy, a lot of times both parents have to work. So how do we bridge the gap for the kids that are latchkey, or they don't get as much time? How are we bridging those gaps, or how can we do that to make sure that our children are taken care of and they have that connectedness and that family legacy? Patricia, answer that question for me, please.
I know this is, it might seem like a stretch, but I feel like chores, because chores somehow connect you back to your roots and your home and your duties, and it all starts at home, right? So I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like chores is going to connect you more to your family and your roots and your home. I know that's crazy, but I really do believe. And also, kids are proud of their work. So it might seem like, oh, wow, it's exhausting. But when they're done, they're proud. So I feel like implementing chores again, I feel like I feel like that's like a lost a thing is the chores, so I feel like that's one way. How about you, Coach Jean? What do you have to say about it?
I can dig it because look, I grew up Saturday morning. You were doing chores whether you wanted to or not, and then you was watching Soul Train and then was it American Bandstand, whatever. That
Right.
was Saturday morning after after the cartoons went off, right? And so what that did when I grew up and started having my kids, guess what? It was like I passed that on. Saturday mornings, get up, work together, clean up the house, make up, clean up your room or whatever, while Soul Train or some music from the radio or something was in the background. So yeah, I can dig it. And then it teaches responsibility on top of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And to mention that, because here's the deal. I have 4 brothers and a sister. And so during the summertime, my older brothers and sisters would watch us 4 kids. What we would do when mom and dad were out the house, and thank God they're gone to glory, so I can tell this story now. We would build forts all over the house with all the sheets and everything, turn the furniture upside down, and we make little tunnels. And then we knew what time my parents would come. So at 2:15, we take everything down, fold everything up, put everything back together like nothing happened. That was so much fun. And I'm wondering if today's kids are getting some of that just childhood stuff, because we need to make sure that our children are being children as well. So you guys bringing up chores, and then we have forts and just playing and being kids. But we also made sure that even though my older sister and my brother were taken care of, the neighbor would come and check on us. Mom would call at lunchtime to make sure we ate. So we need to find a way to bring that type of community back. What do you think are ways that we can start to implement that? Because I know we have programs like the Boys and Girls Club of America. We have other programs, but how can we start to do that in a community? And I'd like people from the community to start writing in and telling us what they think about how we can bring communities together, how we can bridge the gaps to make sure that we stay connected as communities and families. What do you think, Coach Jean?
Well, number one, I think, and I'm from New York originally, Pat. So you remember the block parties, things of that nature. These type of community events that bring the communities together. So your block parties, right? The neighbors get together. I know when I was growing up, Friday nights, if the neighbors would get together and set up card tables, and we get together and chip in and have fish pies and things of that nature. But what did it do? It brought the community together. So I think events like that are simple to do within our communities. And that's a way to help us to get to know, introduce ourselves to our neighbors again, get to know our neighbors again. Because that's really what's missing, right? In this day and age, and we touched on this the last time, it's fear. There's a lot going on. Nobody wants to really connect with the people around them. You never know what response you're going to get. But if we can just start out with one simple event, like a block party or a pool party, if you have a neighborhood that has a local something, a barbecue, a fish fry, that's a great start. And invite the neighbors, even if you just have a cookout and say, look, I'm having a cookout. You and your family come on over to the backyard or wherever, grab whatever for the kids. But I think that's one way we can start.
Wow, that is awesome. What do you think, Patricia?
I think the same thing. You know what I was thinking about? Like, I remember back in the day, you wouldn't think twice of asking a neighbor for an egg. Hey, you got an egg? You got some spare butter? I'm making a cake. And now, it's kind of like, do you even know what your neighbor looks like if you had to give a description? It definitely changed. And I like what you were saying about, like, how about let's have a block party? Like, those are I mean, I, at least in my neighborhood, I see each year, less and less and less, So I would like to bring that back as well, because I believe, and also when, you knew somebody moved into a new house, a house went for sale, you walk over, introduce yourself, maybe you bring a cake, so stuff like that, it'd be nice to teach that to our kids so they could start that again, and start creating that system again, because it definitely was lost. Something happened. Dr. Evans.
Hey, I'm just so happy, y'all. I'm in the background just laughing and enjoying it just like a person watching it on TV. These ladies are ready, y'all. The whole world is watching the PIC TV network, our news world channel all over the world. And I'm so proud of these ladies who are part of the PIC TV network team. You're looking at Michelle, who is down in Atlanta, Georgia. She is our public relations person. We have Coach Jean Turner, all the way from Atlanta, also, who is our referral person, referral manager, and we have from New York our referral managers. I'm capable of sitting back and relaxing, and watching this show and enjoying it. Those who are watching, I got so many comments. We got Atlanta, Georgia watching, Washington, D.C. popping in. Yolanda, thank you for watching Tampa, Florida. We got Mother Edwards, Miss Edwards, Charlotte, North Carolina, watching. We have others popping in. Sandy, Lubbock, Texas. Stephen, Hollywood, California. Thank you. I can see all of these comments and those on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We see you, and also our PIC TV network, a broadcast audience. Hey, we're going to take a break and come back with some more information with these wonderful, wonderful presenters on today. You're watching the PIC TV network news channel. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Hey, thank you for coming in once again. We see the numbers coming up, people watching in all over the world. The PIC TV network news is on the air. We're coming all the way from Atlanta, Georgia is here, and all the way from New York to Washington, D.C. Our network is about you. Yep, the PIC TV network, the People's Investment Channel. That's why we have 60 channels on right now for you. And these channels are designed to encourage you, inspire you, to motivate you, to give you the best in inspiration, the best in information, the best in education, and the best in entertainment. And tonight, we're talking about series number 4, Reconnecting the Generation. And I'm so happy that we had a wonderful kickoff. Now, you guys were talking about old time things that I forgot about we used to do, the neighborhood parties, the block parties. I remember that. I remember the neighborhood watch when we watched over Nosy Rosie's, was checking on everybody in the whole block. She knew what was going on. We missed Nosy Rosie. We talked about, you guys were talking about, the places we used to go to play on the playground. And Gene, there wasn't much crime and violence. We fought, but we didn't shoot each other. We didn't kill each other. We were one family. When I think about Michelle, and I think about Pat, and I think about Eugene, how we came up, and everybody was just had each other back. We could eat the same food, go over Gene's house and I can eat some chicken, and I can go over, Michelle's house and I can eat some French fries, and I can go over to Pat's house and eat some spaghetti. Open the icebox, nobody looking at you crazy. That's how we grew up. It was this one big community, one big neighborhood. But if you take neighbor out of the hood, you only got the hood. So we got to put the neighbors back in, and we're talking about reconnecting the generation. Now, I remember places like Pat, UPO, United Planning Organization. Michelle, can you remember, take me back to your teenage years coming out of high school, your first job?
Okay, well, let me take you back because just so you know, I went to college at the age of 15.
Wow.
So I didn't go to high school. I'm not your typical high schooler. But my first job, I worked for a small family-owned grocery store, Frank's Rolling Store. And what he did was he was a truck farmer. And he sold produce out of his truck that he grew. And he also sold candy and cookies and things of that nature. And I worked for him from the time I was about 10 and a half until I was almost 13. And then when I went to get another job, I worked for the Holiday Inn in the laundry department. And so those are some of the things I was doing. But I was in the Girl Scouts. So I sold cookies. So I was always good at sales, and that was what I was doing. And then even when I was in college, I would shine shoes for extra money in order to make money for my room, because back then my room fees were only $10 a week. But that was a long time ago. But those things, and even then, I always had someone that was watching, or somebody that, my parents knew, were like, hey, do your parents know where you are? Or are you okay? And those things. So that's the way I grew up. Now, what about you, Gene? How did you grow up? As of someone coming out of high school, what was going on with you, and what was your first job?
Okay, so actually, my first job back in the day in New York, I went to school in Jamaica, Queens, and my high school, Martin Van Buren High School, had what we call the co-op program. So once you reached your junior year in high school, you got in this program, and so you alternated weeks. So every other week, you were either in school the whole week, you was at your work. They would find you a job in Manhattan, or you were at that job for that week. So we alternated like that. So my first job was at 16 as a junior in high school at Bank of Tokyo, 100 Broadway on the corner of Wall Street. I forgot what we called ourselves, but I was the one that took the little cablegrams to the different departments and up, and then brought them back to the department where I worked out of. And they had these machines, these cablegrams that they would send all around the world, all around the globe. That was my first job, actually. And so from then, I graduated high school, and the rest is history.
What about you, Patricia? What was your first job in high school? What do you remember?
Well, my first job I got on my own was Dunkin' Donuts. Yes, and I used to smell like donuts. And I remember, I was only 16, and I say my first time I got on my own because my first technical job was a paper route. But my mom took it. My mom took the paper route, right? But it was like 300 papers, and because it was a lot of like buildings and stuff. And me and my sister, my mom, the three girls, we'd go around and deliver a few hundred papers. And my mother would be the driver, and me and my sister would be the deliverers. And back in the day, we'd have to knock on the door and collect once a week, and then we'd be lucky to get a tip. So my mom would let us keep the tip, and that was like, but then at 16, I said, okay, time to get another job. And my first job was Dunkin' Donuts before I became a hairdresser. A year later, I started working in a beauty parlor, and that was my, that turned out to be my career path until Miss You Graham. But Dunkin' Donuts, and I remember I could still smell the smell of my uniform
I love Dunkin' Donuts. Love Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I go to Dunkin' Donuts and I get like a young kid at the counter, I say, "Oh, this is my first job."
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Hey, I'm just so happy. I'm just blessed. I'm seeing more comments coming on. Linda Tompkins, she's also part of our team. She said, my first job was babysitting my nieces and nephews. Hey, Linda, I see you. Yeah, she'll be coming on. She's a part of our team from Maryland University. Linda, thank you for popping in. Keep your comments coming, Linda, too. I remember my first job was working at Cadoza High School. I was playing basketball, and I asked Mr. Waverly Jones, my principal, who's passed on now. He gave me my first job. I sat down in his office, and I played like I was playing through files. There was no, real computers at that time. I didn't know how to use it at that time. Maybe a Pentium or IBM, but I was just like, this was 1981. I was just like in this office at 7th period going down there, and he gave me a shot. I went from there, and then I worked council churches that summer when I graduated from high school. I had $16,000 a week, 16,000 because I was giving out the checks. I was the innovative coordinator. So I would go to the different places, and they gave me the checks. And God was preparing me way back in that time to be a businessman, entrepreneur. So I can remember people who paved the way for me, and we have to do the same thing today for this next generation. I want to ask a question to Gene, and then I'll throw it back to Michelle. And I also want to you to comment on it too, Pat, from New York. One of the things that we're looking at today in our community with young people is more mentors. We need to have more mentors. We need to be the ones who will push them forward, to let them know that we made mistakes too. And you're going to make mistakes too, but we got your back. We're not going to throw you down. We're dealing with so much today with gentrification. We're dealing with this don't judge me generation. We're dealing with a lot of young people who got different lifestyles, but we have to really be those mentors for them. So when I say that, Gene, you down in Atlanta, and Pat, you down in Atlanta. I'm sorry, Michelle, you down in Atlanta. Atlanta, Georgia is like one of the hottest spots on the planet for different cultures and everything. And I know you guys, we're talking about reconnecting the generation, even during the George Floyd situation. I know Michelle can hit on this. It wasn't a lot of us out there doing things, perpetrating. It was people in the mixed crowd that was giving us a bad image. Maybe I'll throw this to Michelle to kick this off, because I want to take you back to that moment, Michelle, when they was kicking out windows, breaking in places, setting cars on fires for a minute. Michelle, but that wasn't all of us. Talk to us about for a second.
Well, when you talk about what was going on and you're talking about the intensity of it, number one, as we've always marched, and when we've marched a lot of times, we were not breaking out windows or busting windows open. What was happening was you always going to have some people we call agent provocateurs, and they found quite a few of them that were plants, that were people that were in these subversive groups that were doing these things. You actually we have lots of footage going around where they caught people defending these businesses. And it's like, no, that's not what this is about. We need to make sure that we stay on task as far as we want to make sure that our protests are peaceful, that this is a respectful protest in order to elevate what this meant to our communities. So, no, we didn't do a lot of that. And they found out we weren't doing a lot of that. They found out there were other bad actors that were coming in that said they were allies, but they truly weren't allies. Because the one thing about having protests, people want to see us, people of color, Black people, indigenous people, Asian people in a bad light when they want to oppress us. And so the only way to do that is make everybody else think that we're bad. But that's not true. And even when you think about, we had a little commercial that came on Juneteenth. So Juneteenth just passed, June 19th, and it was the emancipation of slavery. Well, why did we have to be emancipated? Why was there slavery? Slavery was an economic construct. It was an economic construct of making sure that people in power used people that could be easily identified. Think about slavery. We also had we had in servitude. When we talk about servitude, we had people from Irish and other backgrounds. They would spend 7 years working basically for no wages in order to help build themselves up in the community. And then after the 7 years, they were allowed to get property and to build themselves. But with slavery, what happened is, with them, what happened was they were all white, or they were white looking. So they could run away, go to other communities, and it's like, well, we're looking for this white guy. Well, we're all white. So who are you looking for? So when you had slaves, what was happening is easily identifiable. I mean, there was no way that you couldn't identify a Black person. So there were a lot of different codes that were made, slave codes. But when we talk about these riots, we always have to remember there's always going to be detractors, and there's always going to be people that are going to be helpful, and there are always going to be people that want to make sure that we're seen in a bad light. So if you're thinking about protesting, always be in your integrity. I remember one thing about Dr. Martin Luther King, and even about Miss Coretta Scott King, which I was able to meet as a teenager. She said, always be within your integrity. Now, for those people that don't know it, Dr. Martin Luther King authored 5 books. One of them is Community or Chaos, Where Do We Go From Here? And they talk about the soul fire. They talk about Mahatma Gandhi and how this whole nonviolent demonstrating and why it was so important. We don't want to get into where we've got a race war going on. We want to make sure that when people hear us, we're in our integrity. And that's why when we talk about those bad actors, a lot of that was not us. Not saying that we didn't do some of it, because there are always going to be some people, no matter what their race or color, that's going to go the wrong way. But this time, as they have shown through video, we were actually protecting property and saving properties. We weren't trying to burn down properties. All right, Dr. Evans, back to you.
Wow, that's amazing. We never want to forget, in the midst of us going through COVID-19. And thank you, Gina, for joining us, our author, with us today.
Everyone.
I want to stay right there for a minute in that vein. Jean, from Atlanta, you looked at that television. You saw a lot of young people out there on CNN, Fox 5, NBC, worldwide, but that wasn't all of us. I want the picture to be stated just like Michelle said. We wasn't all out there perpetrating and doing bad things in the midst of this protesting. Come on, Jean, talk a couple of minutes on that.
No, we were not ones doing all those bad things, but I want to take it from a different perspective. And I want to give kudos to this generation, because it got out there, right? Now, granted, and I have to agree with one of the comments that one of the viewers just said, they've taken our history out of the schools. I remember growing up, we had Black history. Learning about our history was a course you had to take, right? And so thank you, Linda Tompkins. She speaks of that. And so we knew where we came from, what our ancestors endured. We were taught and learned about Martin Luther King, Andrew Young, and all the struggles from those who came before us. But this generation, and no, they're not teaching, or they're not teaching our histories in the school. It is no longer required curriculum. They don't even teach it in the schools. They barely celebrate a whole month of it. But this generation did get out and they came out together. You had African Americans, you had Caucasians, you had Asians. This generation got out there and said, you know what? This is not us. We are not for this. Our friends and who we deal with very diversified culture. And I really appreciate the fact that many of them got out there and protested and marched peacefully. So I want to give kudos to this generation for that and that alone. Now, is there work to do? Yes. A lot of it, though, I'm going to be honest, not like it, but I'm a baby boom. I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers, right? I think many of us, we got comfortable, we grew up, we want to, many of us were first generation college graduates. We thought we had it made. We wanted to give our kids everything we didn't have that our parents could afford to give us. And we got lost in that we did not continue, all right, the work of ML King, Coretta Scott King, all of those that came before us. Would it have changed what's going on now, what we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years? Maybe, maybe not. So, but yeah, I saw that. I don't even like to think about it. It makes me feel some kind of way, to recall how that poor man, George Floyd, suffered. The hate that I saw in that cop's face, I don't care what nobody said, he had the look of hate in his eyes. You can see it in his eyes. It was written all over his face. But yes, the fact that this generation got out there in record numbers and said, nah, we're not doing this, is to be commended. So back to you, Dr. Evans.
Wow, you know what? I'm so proud of you. When you did that, Gene, you get a double A in my class. Man, I never thought about the beautiful accolades of the generation standing up and doing the right thing. That's amazing. I like that. That's inspiring to my nieces and nephew, Kim, Lisa, Angel. These are my nieces and nephews. I got so many nieces and nephews I can't even count them all. Stephen, Amos, my sons. Little Paul. That's very inspiring. This is who we're trying to reconnect. Let me go to New York for a minute. Pat, during the incidents that was happening around the world, how did you feel? And all the people wasn't bad people doing stuff out there like the news was portraying on the news when you was watching New York being burnt down and breaking in stores. It wasn't all of us doing bad things. Come on, Pat, talk about it for a minute.
Well, this is it, Dr. Evans. Like, you know what? I live in New York and I was seeing from my own eyes what happened. But you know what? Sometimes you have to take the blinders off. You have to see the reality of it. And things were messed up. And you know what? Because of technology today and because of the new generation filming it, like, Coach Jean said, for me, the worst part about that, and I know it's a sticky subject, and we're getting a little off course with this, but it is important because it is about the new generation versus the old generation, and this cop was more of like this old generation that I'm not proud of, thinking he could do things with nobody seeing it. And for me, the worst part was when the EMT came and oh God rest his soul, that George Floyd was already passed away and he was still handcuffed. Like, that was so barbaric. And thank God for the new generation that they filmed it. And again, like Michelle said, there's bad people no matter what color you are, no matter where you came from, no matter what religion you are. There is a little bit of bad everywhere because those are the loyal forces of opposition. That's the hard truth. And it's up to us to put a stop to it. And I'm so proud of the new generation because I'm going to say this publicly. I'm a little guilty. I wanted to be Switzerland. I did want to be Switzerland. I just wanted peace, and I just didn't want to face it. You know, I didn't want to take the blinders off, but I did, because the new generation, you know, made us all have to face the reality of it, and they really made a difference, and I'm so proud of them. And they just made us all take our earmuffs off and our blinders off, and just do something about it. You know, I think as in my age group, I was afraid of, you know, the consequences. But you know what? There's always going to be consequences. So just face it. Just face it, you know? And that's how I feel about it. And it's too bad. But you know what? Unfortunately, it was terrible what happened, but a lot of good did come out of it at the end. At the end, there was a silver lining, you know? And there is still a long way to go. But you know, I do believe the generation really stepped up to the plate. I'm very proud of them. Very proud of them.
Hey, that's amazing. I want to thank, thank you, Pat, for that information that you shared. And I see Linda still popping in, talking to us. Thank you, Linda. You're just a part of this conversation. This generation knows how to be a part of the solution and not the problem. You're exactly right, Linda. And I believe that there's more good people than bad people. It's just that the news a lot of times portray the bad people more than the good people. We got good people on this line right here, all the way from New York to Atlanta to Washington, D.C., you know, on tonight. And we're excited, you know, to bring you information. This is what Reconnecting the Generation information is all about. We cannot forget about the people who paved the way for us, you know, and it's just amazing. Thank you. God had enough to expose, all of us, you know, and we have lived long enough to understand that, you know, every day is precious, and we take life serious, and we reconnect in this generation. We're going to do it with our part. If we had more talk shows like this, the world would be better. You know, we passing something on. This is what our ancestors gave us. You know, Linda's, who's on, her mom, who's a part of our family, Pat's mom, Pat's dad, you know, Michelle's mom, Michelle's dad, you know, Pat's mom, Pat's dad, Gina's dad, Dee's mom. They passed something on to us. Mother and Father Evans, who's gone to heaven. We're who we are today because they paved the way for us. And we're still walking on the path that they set before us. Hey, we're going to take a commercial break, y'all. And we're going to come right back with this in segment number 2. Thank you for your time. You're watching the PIC TV network. Our hit news topic, Reconnecting the Generation. We'll be right back after this.
This is a plea to our brothers to stop killing one another. This is to the powers that be. I want you to realize we're part of God's family. We can no longer ignore what's happening in the streets. I can't walk down the street without you harassing me. I'm doing nothing wrong. Why do you need to see my ID? You walk in my shoes, you wouldn't treat me the way you do. A little empathy, and you see I'm not your enemy, yeah. You are my brother. All I'm saying, from a different mother. I don't want no trouble. No, no. The skin that I'm in makes you hate me from within. Do my trance make you scared? Why you feel I should be dead? I don't have a gun, it's just my phone. Please leave me alone. I'm just trying to make it home. Oh, all I'm saying, I don't want no trouble. Kill me. Please remove your knee. I'm trying to go home to my family. So please don't kill me. Yeah, yeah. Please don't shoot me. I wanna go home to my family. Yeah. Please don't harm me. Yeah. I wanna go home to my family. Yeah, yeah. Please don't kill me. Don't kill me. I wanna go home to my family. Yeah. So please remove your knee. Please don't shoot me. Yeah. Don't kill me. I have a family waiting on me. Yeah, yeah. Please don't murder me. I don't. Please don't kill me. I wanna go home to my family. So please don't shoot me.
Hey everybody, thank you for coming back to watch us, the PIC TV Network news segment. I'm excited for all of our viewers around the world. Thank you, Linda, for tuning in for us. Everybody from North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, Lubbock, Texas. Thank you, Yolanda, Tampa, Florida. Thank you, Stephen, Hollywood, California. Thank you for watching, everybody, our segment 1 of Reconnecting the Generation. That was a video of Peter Boone. He was on our television presentation Spotlight, and that man is a powerful, powerful brother who's on a mission. And we're going to keep pushing his music, pushing his videos. Peter Boone is a part of our PIC TV Network music family, our very own. And I want to thank our panel today. You guys are just, I want to give you 5 stars today. We're going to have Arthur Gina to come back in our segment 2. And we'll be back on the next segment. Don't go nowhere, y'all. We have an after talk presentation. So we're going to close out this segment. We're going to come back with our brand new segment. So those on YouTube, don't go nowhere. We're going to come back with part 2 of our segment right after this.
We've all been hurt at some point. even abandoned. Many of us have done the hurting ourselves. We get to the point where we don't trust anyone, nor do we feel worthy of being loved by anyone. Then there's that one person who just doesn't give up on loving you. Their love is unconditional. Their love stays long enough for you to heal. And then they promise to never leave. That's love you can count on. God's love.